Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heart of the Forest. So, in the last episode, we went back to our roots. We're trying to find out what's going on in our family history, and there's some strange going on. I guess you can turn around and say, especially in the forest. There's a lot of shifty things going on. However, it does seem to be the focal point of a lot of tension brewing between activist groups because the forest is going to be torn down by some giant corporations and such. So, yeah, we have a little bit of a protest we need to go to. So, let's go ahead and jump into that in chapter 2, logging. The day after. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heart of the afternoon building. Those long, honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. I got up. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I wasn't sure how I felt. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somehow, somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. And there was the dream. Then I remembered the dream, the clearing, the animals in the sky. How was I supposed to react to it? I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya joined you. I really do wonder about that, always saying Anya joined you. I wonder if you can actually piss her off a lot at the beginning and then turn around and not have her with you, basically. Alright, summer morning. We were halfway through the forest when Bartek caught up with us. You were right, Anya. The protest is important. And that is the only place we can go to. Against the machines. I was running all the options over and over in my head, and I didn't really care where I was going. When I looked up, the sun was shining, the village was far behind me, and I was at the logging site. Anya looked around. So what's the plan? I mean, I'm not that passionate about it, but at the same time I am. But yeah, I'm here to learn about my family. I need to figure out how my family fitted into all of this. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in shadow. It was clear they needed an outside voice to settle the dispute. Let's look at the machines. I had never seen a harvester before, and I was shocked by the vile ugliness of the machine. There were 3 at the site. Their long metal arms were wrapped with black pipes that looked like glistening intestines or weird hanging sperm sacs, and they reeked. The stench was dark, rancid, and putrid, yet none of the people there seemed to smell it. Not the reporters, not the police, not the loggers, nor the protesters. I couldn't understand. The clearing was full of that smell. I saw a familiar face among the protesters. Kim was standing next to a vaguely military-looking white man who was arguing with Olga from the cemetery. The protesters were clearly conflicted. I wanted to know what it was all about. Curious about the reason for it all, I approached the protesters. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I let Bartek handle it. Bartek leaned over to him and whispered something. The officer instantly lost interest. "Oh," he said, "you're one of them," and then let us go. Then I noticed that someone joined us. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached out hair. "Don't worry," she patted the officer on the arm. "It was an awful pickup line anyway." He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am." I smiled. I smiled at her and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. "Pat," some guy called her from the gathering. "Could you come here? I need you to show Olga that chart." she sighed, reaching to her backpack and taking out a tablet. And they're at it again, she murmured under her breath and winked at me. Coming. We went toward the activists. As I walked towards Kim, I heard more and more of the argument. Olga, you can't. The man was speaking with a strong German accent. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. Do not fucking tell me what I can and can't do, Colonel, Olga interrupted. I can because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. A slender, green-eyed man was standing near her. He took a few steps back, went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on us all, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. Ah, Daniel, you know how to bring the point home. He looked at her confused. Cornell raised his eyebrow. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. In this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You never seen real war and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Kim. Hey, can we talk? I asked, approaching Kim. Oh, Maya, darling. It's good to see you. They smiled. Maybe you'll be able to convince her. Oh, so I was to take a stand. I looked at them both. Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cool, professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt about the situation. Since I'm balanced, sure, I'll go with this. There was a fine line to tread. I'm unfriendly with Cornell. Cautious, neutral, cautious, sympathetic. Okay. There's a fine line to tread, I said in the silence. You don't want the protesters to be painted as terrorists, and you don't want them to be treated as irrelevant and ignored. Kim shook their head and moved forward. Olga, darling, you know, I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please, trust me on that one. They looked at her unapologetically. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. Lisa decided to say something. Lisa looked them straight in the eye. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what, one mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. I'm not the inspiring type, so I'm not gonna say anything. Maybe it was for the best. I let them solve it their way. And then Olga punched Cornell firmly in the face, turned around, and walked away. He turned around holding his jaw and wincing, and then he looked at me and just shook his head as if it was my fault. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked toward the reporters while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I felt someone looking at me. Putska, neutral. I felt someone watching me, but when I looked around, I saw nothing suspicious. Then I looked up and sensed the source of the presence. The whole forest was watching me. I couldn't explain how I understood it, but I knew it was the truth. The Putska focused its attention on me, waiting, expecting something. The trees looked ancient and eternal, yet they turned out to be so fragile when confronted with high-tech logging equipment and greed. I had to do something. Oh shit. I looked at my friends. We have to stop this logging. Yes, just like Olga said. Anya nodded, excited. What they're doing is unforgivable, and we have to fight. It is a very complicated situation. Bartek looked thoughtful. I liked what that guy Cornell said, that we should proceed peacefully, not to discourage the public and potential supporters. I looked at one group. I looked at the other. The harvesters were dripping with black oil. The forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself, and then I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, helpless. Great. Olga escalation. Sure. No passerin. As we approached, Daniel pricked his ears. I could have sworn they moved. Hello, fellow humans, he grinned at us. I felt Olga's eyes on me. She didn't seem to remember me at all. And who the fuck do you think you are? She demanded. She stood there with her arm wrapped around the waist of another woman. It was Lisa. She winked at me and mouthed, "It's okay." I didn't care about them. I wanted to act. Sure, let's go with that, because my rage is quite high. I couldn't care less about her opinion. I knew why I was there. I'm someone who wants to burn those fuckers. I pointed at the lurking shapes of the harvesters. Lisa nudged her. See, honey, I told you. It's obvious. I looked at them again. Olga rolled her eyes. I had more time to look at her now. She was wearing combat trousers, sandals, and there was a small silver double-bladed axe hanging on the string around her neck. The Labrys, a lesbian feminist symbol. She was hiding where she stood. She wasn't hiding where she stood. What was her plan? Do you really want to burn the harvesters? I asked. Well, the assholes were right. It's not an option in this drought. But yes, I want to destroy them and stop the logging by any means necessary. Are you ready to help us? Back to the most important question. What's going on here? I asked. Lisa said you could help me. Isn't it obvious? Her laugh was bitter. Your grandfather ran away and left his debt to the Putska unpaid. He was supposed to guard her. Since you're here, you can make it right. She seemed to believe it. I looked at her, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. The question is, she looked at me as she paused, will you do it? Before I could answer, there was a commotion, a change of mood. Olga stiffened and looked over my head. The police were coming. The police were coming our way. Officers, Olga said, hissing the words through her teeth. Ma'am, said an officer whose round face was adorned by a mustache that looked like a shoe brush, disperse. Do I want to get ready for a fight? I'm not brave, so this might not be the best situation. Maybe I should go with, but I wasn't easy to intimidate. Yeah, let's go with that. I stood shoulder to shoulder with the other protesters as the officer started to approach. Disperse, repeated the mustached man. I took a step forward. I stood my ground. I took a step back. I stood my ground. When I stood there between the cops and the protesters, I realized that there were more of us than them. The activists started to back down. Suddenly, my head was surprisingly clear. I grabbed the megaphone. I grabbed the megaphone from the hands of a startled teenager and jumped on a tree stump. Hey, I shouted. The amplified sound stopped everyone in their tracks. Remember what this is all about. I turned to the protesters. Are you going to stand here and let them push you away? For a split second, I was surprised how clear my voice was. The cops were weak. Oh boy. They do not respect the land. They do not respect the forest. They do not respect us, I continued. They think they are masters here. They are not. They are just weak, vulnerable humans. They think their badges and weapons will protect them. And I got carried away. They will not. Look at them. Just look at them. Sweating like pigs, unable to take their uniforms off even when it's too hot. They blindly follow orders. They're as stupid as their machines. That was when they maced me. My vision tunneled and I noticed that the cops only advanced after they maced me. Then the cops drew their batons and the protesters started running. And then all hell broke loose. I heard harsh, menacing voices. I heard screams. I heard people running towards one another, the police crashing into protesters. Some of them fought back, some turned and ran, and some sat down on the ground only to be dragged away. I was blinded. Someone suddenly grabbed me from behind. I tried to free myself, but couldn't. I looked down at the hands that held me. Don't do anything rash, said Olga, dragging me away. You've done enough for today. I kept silent. This time I kept silent. I didn't know whether it was praise or a rebuttal, and I didn't dare to ask. The ugly truth. I have no idea how I ended up on the way back to the village. My eyes were red. I had a runny nose and my throat hurt from screaming. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya and Bartek from my sight. I was alone. Or so I thought. Hey, let me help you, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was looking at me with concern. What happened? It was too much? I whispered, all of that. We walked slowly toward the village. We talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. So why are you protesting the logging? She asked after a few minutes of small talk. For personal reasons. I came here for personal reasons, and I've dropped right into the middle of some eco-guerrilla campaign, I shrugged. And for many reasons, my interests are aligned with the protesters. I looked at her. And why are you asking? She looked at me with renewed interest. Do you know why they're cutting down the trees? She asked back. Because you do know that the logging is done by a government company, the state forest. But why? But why are they doing this? I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forest take care that the forest was healthy? Erica reached out for her notebook. It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year, the beetle infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. Was cutting down the trees necessary? Is cutting down the trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters state that this is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue that they are cutting wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Maybe if they remove the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread. I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what makes the forest unique. Erica smiled. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one. But was the logging legal? But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. Did they have to intervene at all? Couldn't they just leave the Pushka alone and let nature take its course? That's one of the options, Erica admitted, but there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. The situation was more complex than I thought, and Erica's answers did nothing to clear the picture. Well, what was the truth? Stop beating around the bush, please, I asked. I need to know the truth. I'm just doing my job, Erica shrugged. I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what they want to do. It was a tough decision. I shook my head. Why did the situation always have to be so complex? At least I was sure that they were cutting down the trees, and the Pushka needed my help. What happened to the wood? When they cut down the trees, what happens to the wood? I asked Erica. The state forests have to be financially self-sufficient. They earn money by selling forest products, including wood, she answered. That's why I think the bark beetle is not the reason, but an excuse to push more wood on the market. I concluded my case. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. I'm just helping you make an informed choice. Both of these will give me a plus. So what was right and what was wrong? I asked, exasperated. Do you believe that people can be evil? She asked back. Yeah, some people were bad. Some are, for sure, I shrugged. But isn't that too easy an explanation? I said nothing. What's the matter? She asked. I admitted my hopelessness. I felt so helpless when I saw all that. I took a deep breath. Then I remembered what Olga had told me. All that mystical stuff. And they said that I have some family debts to pay. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in, and there was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? How come she didn't smell it? You didn't smell it? The harvesters reeked of something like meat that's been rotting in acid, only worse. I couldn't even find the words to describe it, but the memory of the foulness still clung to the back of my throat, swimming in my sinuses. I know what you're talking about, she answered, slowly, but I don't think everybody can smell it. I looked at her and raised my eyebrow questioningly. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. I'll let it go to kind of calm my rage down. I shrugged. Cryptic remarks never did anything for me. The situation was complicated enough as it was. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. We walked on in silence. Time to regroup. When I opened the door, I found Anya and Bartek sitting on Anya's bed. They were a little flustered and were nonchalantly trying to look like I hadn't interrupted anything. We lost sight of you, Bartek said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So how was your day? Anya asked. Well, I got maced. I grinned. It was my first time. Do not recommend. 1 out of 5 stars. Oh shit, are you alright? Anya asked. Bartek shifted uncomfortably. You shouldn't provoke the police. I'll live, I shrugged. Bartek had a point. You may have a point, Bartek, I admitted. I barge in and try to solve problems that I might not yet understand. It's cool, he smiled. This whole business is a mess. I met a lot of new people. I met some very interesting people, I said, still excited. Yeah, they looked like a colorful bunch. Anya grinned. Bartek rolled his eyes. Colorful and uninvited. They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. I learned a lot. Sure. Did you know that the government supported the logging even when it was illegal? I shared my dismay. If they support it, it can't be illegal. Bartek crossed his arms. Of course it can. I threw my arms up, frustrated. I incited some violence, sure. I think I might have incited some violence, I admitted. I was just trying to lift their spirits. Oh, Maya, Bartek looked worried. You should be more careful with your words, Anya frowned. There wasn't enough time to be careful, I protested. It was all I wanted to share. I shrugged. Just another day in Belawiza. We sat for a while in silence. You know, there's more to see here than Belawiza, Bartek said to me. You should visit. Wow, okay, let's try this. Pogorzili, Buddy, Tiramiski, and Zerlanka. See the open air museum and the bison. The logging is not all that happens here. Maybe later? I'd love to see it all, I sighed. And I'll do that as soon as the situation with the Puska is resolved. And how's the search for your roots going? Asked Bartek, clearly wanting to change the topic. I shared what I'd learned. It seems that my ancestors lived around the forest for a long time, I said, and there are some kind of debts to be paid. Wow, Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I was tired. I just sat there looking through the window. The day'd been full on and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. I can do anything. It's quiet now, yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I don't want to lose any of my rage. So I run. I'm running through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. I welcome the darkness. It's thick, oily, snake-like. It wraps around my ankles, caresses my wrists, then takes my hand and leads me to the site. It's full of maimed bodies. They are all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. And there's the stench. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening black intestines. Each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirring blades. They snap at me blindly. I feel righteous anger burning through me like molten lava bubbling from the ground, through my feet, up my legs, through my chest to my head. I point at the monsters. My friends watch, and I bask in their rage. I howl the sentence. I howl out the death sentence and we run toward the monstrous shapes. We bite off heads and tear off arms. We are an executioner's axe, unflinching. Then I wake up. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, and the duvet was torn. Tiny feathers were spilling through the tear. What happened? Oh, okay. So that was a quick little chapter. So I guess this will be a quick little episode here. I guess I'll just go ahead and do this chapter by chapter. I'm still not sure how long this game is because I'm kind of recording these right back to back, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, just a quick little chapter or whatnot. So in the next episode, we'll check out chapter 3, and depending on how the story goes, I might go ahead and add chapter 4 in there as well, but we'll see how it goes. So if you like the video, like the video. If you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe. I have a lot of things on the channel, and I will have many other things in the future. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave it in the comments section, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.